Hello and welcome to Top Story. Today, the leaders of Greek and Turkish Cyprus meet for rare face-to-face talks in the hope of reviving UN endeavours to reunite the divided island. The meeting between Greek Cypriot President Tassos Papadopoulos and his Turkish Cypriot counterpart Mehmet Ali Talat is taking place in the UN-controlled buffer zone. It's only their second meeting since 2004 and the first since July 2006 last year, when they agreed a so-called twin-track approach to pave the way for peace talks. Although greeted by the UN at the time as a historic breakthrough, the talks have led nowhere. Cyprus has been divided since 1974, when Turkish troops invaded the island after a Greek Cypriot coup backed by the military junta then ruling Greece. They had hoped to unite the island with mainland Greece. Hopes were raised in 2004 of a settlement when the Turkish Cypriots voted in a referendum in favour of a UN plan for reunification. But the plan was rejected by the Greek Cypriots. Well, joining me now from Nicosia to discuss today's talks is Kalliopi Agapiou-Josefides, who is a professor of political science at the University of Cyprus. Thanks very much for being on Top Story. Could I just begin by asking you how much is riding on these talks? Is there a sense of optimism, or are people still fairly optimistic given the past?
Yes, people want to be optimistic, although the history of the story is not that encouraging them in that direction, but people want really a way out of the deadlock. That's why they hope that something will happen out of this process, not out of this single meeting, but of course this meeting is politically symbolic and politically important.
Have there been any signs that something might come out of this? Any encouraging signs from either side?
I would say unfortunately not, but we hope that some work is done behind the lights behind public light, if you want. But people want really an end to the division of the island and want their island to be reunited in the framework of the European Union.
There's been very little dialogue between the two parts of the island over the last year since those talks in July 2006. Why is that? Why has the atmosphere been so bad over the last year?
Yeah, it's true that the atmosphere has been very bad since the twin referenda on the Annan Plan, which for the Greek Cypriot was not what the founding fathers in Rome set out to build. They consider it to draw lines instead of abolishing dividing lines. So the deception of people was high, and no talks were held for a very long time. Then in 2006, a process started again, but is still very slow. And so the meeting of the two leaders of President Papadopoulos and Mr. Mehmet Ali Talat on behalf of the Turkish Cypriot community is a long-awaited meeting.
Why did things go wrong in 2004? Because hopes were so high then when the UN put together their plan. The Turkish Cypriots agreed in a referendum, they supported it, and then the Greek Cypriots turned it down. Why was that?
Oh, this is a very long story, and we need a lot of time to analyze the reasons why the Greek Cypriots voted no to the referendum. There was an overwhelming rejection of the plan that, of course, was not that in itself it is a problem, because this means that it did not meet the expectations of people, this plan. And I think the main reason, as I explained before, is that for them the accession of the country to the European Union was a very important event in their political history, and the Annan Plan was for them not what the founding fathers in Rome set out to build. that was the main reason, if I can summarize this in very few words.
Since then, and it seems over the last year in particular, attitudes on the Turkish Cypriot side seem to have hardened, with many people, if not a majority of Turkish Cypriots, saying they now favour a two-state plan. But that is completely unacceptable to the Greek Cypriots, isn't it?
Yes, of course, the people do believe in the reunification of the island, but also in the very concept of European integration. So they do believe in integration, not only a kind of collage of two parts. And in this sense, people consider the Annan Plan as a kind of a collage-type reunification, but people want reunification and integration.
What the Greeks, the Turkish Cypriots had expected, almost as a reward for their support for the UN plan, that their economic isolation would be ended. Indeed, the EU seemed to be promising that there would be a move towards that. There was talk, for instance, of the port of Famagusta being opened, of the airport in northern Cyprus being opened. But the Greek Cypriots prevented that happening. Now, do you think, is it in the long-term interests of the Greek Cypriots to prevent the opening up of northern Cypriot ports and airport?
Well, I think that the current state of affairs do not benefit either side and presents a lose-lose outcome for Cyprus and for Europe. The solution of the Cyprus problem is not and cannot be a zero-sum game. It can lead to a win-win situation, given, of course, the fact that the era of ready-made constitutions, guarantor status, military intervention rights have no place in a community of states sharing common democratic values in a wider political institutional framework based on democracy through law and human rights, such as the one of the European Union. So people are really expecting to live in a contemporary democracy that really respects human rights and respects also diversity. So after so many years, Cyprus is still in search of its own unity in diversity, I would say, and is still in search of une synthèse républicaine that would allow the polity to function at a supra-communitarian level and thus be conducive to integration and reunification.
Okay, we're going to have to end it there. That's all we have time for today. Thanks to Calliope Agapiou Josephides in Nicosia.
Thank you very much.
Join us again tomorrow for another edition of Top Story. Goodbye.